Everything you do, like if it's motivated by fear or by love, you're going to get something completely different.
It's good.
It's going to be you're going to think you're going to hear God say this or that. But as soon as like what you do is motivated by fear, you're not hearing God anymore. So you have to be careful with that.
Anxiety and overthinking. This is the biggest thing that is killing the beginning of dating. What do you think, JJ?
I have a huge crush on you, and every time I see you, I just light up, and I have butterflies and sparks, and I've been thinking about you. I don't know how to tell you. I had a dream about you, and now when I'm around you, I'm super nervous. But I can't really ask you out on a date because what if it's the wrong decision? What if you're not the one?
Yeah. Well, on my end, I went on 2 dates with this guy. It was so amazing. But after these 2 dates, like I haven't heard from him. And I keep checking my phone and it went so well. And now I'm questioning how these dates really went. And maybe I was too much. And maybe I talked too much. And maybe my last text, I used too many exclamation points. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have double texted. Now I double texted. I shouldn't have done that. And maybe he's just so turned off. Maybe he's pulling away from me. I don't know what to do. What do you think I should do?
Well, what if I posted on my Instagram story, but I didn't text you back yet?
Yeah. And then I saw him posting his Instagram story and he didn't text me back yet. And now I'm just freaking out. I don't know what to do. Do I message him? Do I not say anything because I already double texted? What do I do?
I don't know. I don't have peace. I can't ask you out on a coffee date. I don't have peace. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's God. I think it's God. God is not giving me peace to ask you out on a coffee date.
Yeah, or maybe fear is just getting in the way and it's not actually God at all, everybody.
I don't know. I just went on a fast about it and didn't have peace.
Maybe you should use some common sense. Anywho, today, you guys, we are bringing in Joy and Matthieu, and we are going to be, they've been on the podcast before. Go listen to their first episode, I Don't Have Peace. It's all about do you have peace or do you not? How did you know? Is this a real thing? Should we care about that? And today we're actually talking more about the beginning stages of dating, that anxiety that hits before asking them out, after the first date, those texting communications. Are they going to text me back or not? Should I commit to them or should I not? All of those things we're going through today. Really quick, you guys, we have our School of Dating 11-week mentorship program happening starting the end of February. It is my favorite program that we do. We have another couple that just got engaged that's getting married in March. Actually, both of them took School of Dating, and we're so excited. We now have dozens of couples that actually are in healthy relationships, marriages. It's incredible. It is intensive. You will get your own coach, but it really does transform your dating life. We're coming to the end of the signups for School of Dating. So if you're interested, you can go to joinschoolofdating.com. Check it out. You can even schedule a free call with JJ and chat with him.
You'll probably regret it, but
to find out more about it, we'd love to have you guys. All right, without further ado, let's talk about anxiety and overthinking with Joy and Matthieu. You guys, we have Joy and Matthieu Rossignol. Is that good? Did I say it right? Hey guys, what's up? It's good to have you.
It's good to be here.
It's like, we love that we're back. It's always fun talking to you guys. So
yeah, it was a blessing to do this podcast the first time. So we're really happy that, we have this thing going,
Yeah, well, we are too. You guys were one of our top episodes of 2024. If you guys missed it, go back and check it out. We talked about how do you know if you have peace or not? Oh, it's such a sticky subject. And you guys, that probably already applies to so many of you listening. Go back and listen. Today, we're going to be diving into anxiety and overthinking and in the early stages of dating, which is truly a make or break situation, I think, because in our last episode, we talked about, as you're like in a relationship really, or like more seriously considering someone, how do you know you have peace about moving forward with them? And which is a big deal. But today, it's like that beginning stages, that first, second, third date, before you even go out with them, that overthinking, the anxiety, even anxiety leading up to asking them out, I feel like is such a killer in the dating process these days.
Let's just jump in. Anxiety, secondary emotion. fear is the underlying emotion.
Yeah.
However, what about anxiety and excitement? Like, can they be intertwined? Say I have a church crush, I have a gym crush, and when I'm around them, I feel like a rush, right, of excitement, nervousness, anxiety. It's kind of all blended together. So can they kind of coexist, or is that anxiety? Like, what is that kind of feeling I'm feeling in that, kind of crush scenario, especially where I see them over and over. I'm fantasizing about them when I'm not seeing them. And so obviously when I see them,
you're like reading my journal in high school and college. Like, what?
It's amazing. It's almost like we're all humans and have the same feeling,
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I feel like that excitement and anxiety, they definitely fall in the same realm depending on like where it's coming from. And so I think sometimes where you can be in a state where you're like really excited about it. Like, this is my first relationship. I'm finally going on a date. We're texting. My friend would always call it like we're caking, which means like you're texting and you're like smiling, like that little season. I don't know.
Caking?
I've never heard that. Caking. That's hilarious.
He makes up words. And like you're like really into it or just really excited about it. I think that's normal where most people can feel that. But I think where that can turn into anxiety is when you're jumping to what this is before you're even there. And I think that's where I had a big problem with that, where I would talk to a guy and we'd be texting and then I'm already jumping to be like, oh my gosh, like what if we start dating? And if we're dating, like I'm already emotionally connected and invested like we're dating when we're only just in the first couple of dates. And I feel like a lot of people, at least who maybe experience my type of anxiety, that's where we can, it's like we kind of already have decided that we are in this place without actually really acknowledging the feelings that are actually coming up for you. So, for example, this didn't happen with you, luckily, because I think I got a lot of healing. But when I was
weren't that exciting.
You weren't that exciting, actually. Yeah, just kidding. But when I was talking to guys, I would already like. It's like I was coming from a desperate place. And so everything would feel super high stakes. Everything would feel like I would like really I would like be on my phone all the time. Like, if they text me back, like I would always just be on alert. Everything would just feel so intense. And then I didn't really get to determine to feel like, am I actually liking this guy or am I just liking the experience of somebody liking me? And so I'm really attached to this, experience rather than actually attached to this person. And I think it feels really confusing because it can feel similar. But I think for me, it was coming from this root fear of this guy likes me. So therefore I have to like him because this could be the one and this could be it. So I need to make sure this works. And so I'd overexert myself rather than like taking it slow. That's how my experience was. I don't know what you would say about.
Yeah. I mean, for me, to be honest, I do feel like there's a big difference between the excitement and the nervousness that you experience when you start dating and then anxiety. Because like, I remember when I started dating her, or if I started dating anybody that I was interested in, there was always the excitement. There was always, and then whenever you're going to meet them or something, like you'd be a little nervous. But that was fun to me. That was like a fun part of it. Now, the anxiety is when you started overthinking everything. And so for me, I'm like, I'm not even having fun anymore. I'm just stuck in my head. So that's where for me, there's a difference between being nervous and being anxious. Is like, well, nervousness, like you can experience that whenever you do something different, whenever you do something new, whenever you meet a new person. Like, it's just because excitement and nervousness comes with the newness of things. So that's why at the beginning of a relationship, if you're maybe not prone to anxiety right away, you are going to be excited because it's like, it's like being exposed. It's for your brain. Your brain is being exposed to a new thing. And it's like a kid, whenever you give it a new toy, it's like, oh, so interesting. And then you see after a while, they're not even interested in that toy anymore, but the toy has not changed.
Yeah. Well,
they're just
what
not
about
excited.
the anxiety? What about the anxiety before you're even dating? Like you're in that kind of like just fantasizing crush realm. Like you get, whether it's excitement, but for me, that excitement's almost like the thrill of something new and you're both in love and it's wonderful. It's like that honeymoon. We call it the merry-go-round. Like your brain is just flooding with dopamine and you're going round and round. It's super fun and exciting until like it kind of wears off.
Yeah.
But before you even get on the merry-go-round together, there's almost an anxiety of like, I'm going to see them, or how am I coming across when I'm in the circle of friends with them? And does my breath smell? And did I say something funny? You know what I mean? It's like, there's almost that pre-anxious where you're not even dating or talking or caking.
I think that's where, if we're talking about it in the sense of, again, if you haven't listened to the podcast before, we kind of separated the two different anxieties. So one that's more avoidant, one that's more anxiously attached, if we want to put it in that way. I feel like for the anxiously attached person, that can feel like, again, it is this like so much nervousness and fear and like, there's similar, I feel like they're very, very similar. I think it's what we do with it that makes it more anxiety prone rather than it being this normalness of like, oh my gosh, am I wearing my best clothes? Do I look good? Are they going to notice me? Like if I walk by in the room, are they going to see me? Like kind of that kind of nervousness around that I feel like that's like very normal. Everyone probably experiences some level of that. But then when it turns into the extreme is when it's like this really hyper intensity overthinking this process. Like everything feels like it's so involved. And it's like, he looked at me, so therefore he probably likes me. And so like I'm already picturing my mind that we are dating because of these 4 things that happened. My friends would do this to me all the time. And I would say something and I'm like, this is happening. And so we're probably like, he probably likes me. And they're like, okay, like maybe they would feed it. But sometimes it's some people just need to sit down and be like, these 4 things happen. That's awesome. But that does not mean anything. You know what I mean? This is just like the normal, like the beginning parts of this process, but we can't jump to it being like these 10 things happen. So therefore I know he likes me and I've already prepared in my mind that he likes me. And then when it doesn't happen, they have so much more heartbreak because they already attached to this idea of it happening rather than it being like, we're not actually there. We're really in this beginning stage. And it's actually something that I had an intern back in the day, in BSSM, and she told me something that like changed my life. And she said, do not allow your heart to go further than any action that has taken place. And I think in that context, that looks like if we are just in this process of caking, whatever, which is maybe we haven't even said we liked each other. Maybe we just like, I know this guy is cute. You know, this girl is cute. And we're just in this beginning stages of no one has said anything. My heart needs to be at that place of then that's it. I'm getting to know this person. We're just friends. You know what I mean? Yeah. Nothing more has happened. If we go on a date, then that's another level of what this is, but we're still not dating. You know what I mean? We're not like in a relationship. And so many people jump so fast and they get the heart broken when nothing even happened because they jump too far compared to where the relationship actually was at.
I think so much of what you're bringing up is actually the self-sabotage I feel like that people experience in dating and in those early stages of dating, specifically through anxiety, overthinking. We had a couple on the podcast that told their story. They met at Heart of Dating conference. And this is just a very basic example. You guys can listen to it because it was a recent episode. But, there's all these little moments. Like they met, they had a great connection at conference. And then the next day, she didn't hear from him at all. He was traveling back to Miami, and in his world, he was actually thrilled. He was so excited. He was over the moon. He was texting his friends that he met this girl. It was so amazing, blah, blah, blah. In her mind, she doesn't hear from him the whole day, the next day. And she's thinking, he's not interested. Wow. Like I got my hopes up. And now she's like anxious, like looking at her phone, thinking about it. And, thankfully for him, the following day, he actually did text her and said a Happy New Year. But she already is receiving the message now thinking like, oh, he waited a whole day. Like he doesn't like me. All of this overthinking and assumptions that is almost killing the process. Thankfully, they didn't kill the process. They got engaged. They just got married. Like amazing. They worked through it. But what I see so often in dating is you're trying to interpret the other person's behavior. You're like in your own mind, being a detective of figuring out every single thing from the nothing that's in front of you. And then therefore you spiral
and you build
into,
you can build a positive or a negative.
Right,
She
exactly.
could have gone positive, even though the reality of the signs in front of her was this is not really going anywhere. And she's imagining them getting married, right? That's the narrative. And she went negative, right? But you're just saying, hey, don't put the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
Don't project a narrative, a fantasy based off, the little breadcrumbs you have in front of you.
Yeah. What would you guys really suggest for this? Is so many of our listeners. I mean, it's me. It's every person I coach. There's so much in their head over analyzing self-sabotage happening. So I'd love to hear what you guys think and how you would help these people, all of our singles that I know you guys care about too, from stopping themselves from self-sabotaging, from overthinking, which is like killing the dating process.
Yeah.
I think one thing that is important is self-awareness. You know, you have to be understanding of how your brain works and how you work and how what pushes you to do things. So if you're in that phase and you feel like you're overanalyzing the person's actions or the things they're not doing or whatever it is, like you have to have a little self-awareness to be like, oh, I'm being a little insecure right now, and I need to not listen to those thoughts or just the intentions that would be insecure, So I think self-awareness is really important. And I think what you said too is like, you got to understand too, especially if it's the early stages, you're only getting to know each other. Yeah. There's no type of commitment that's been made. And also, everybody has like their own lives as well. Like we're all in our own heads. We all have our things going on. Like, this example that you gave, like that guy wasn't trying to ghost her or anything. He just had his own life, So, and honestly, I can speak for myself too, because I'm a real estate agent, and sometimes it's hard for me to not keep texting my clients, because I'm like, I need to hear back from you. I need to hear what you're thinking about this property. And it's kind of the same thing of like, dang, if you keep doing that, you're going to start appearing pushy and annoying, and you don't want to be like that. I think you got to look at yourself and be like, hey, things are going to be okay. Things are going to be fine. No matter like what happens, like what's for me will not pass me by. Basically.
Do you think the core of that though is like I need this person to like me. I need this client to buy the house so that I can put food on the table. Right? So it's like the underlying thing is I have a need here, and this person needs to fill it. So therefore I'm going to, and then we get anxious. Is that how the math works? Is my mathin'?
I would say so. I think like if you're, let's say you've been single for a very long time, and you're, let's just say as a woman, we have a biological clock. We think about these things. We think about, okay, I'm 30 and I'm still single. I have 10 years of fertility. We think about these things. And so when every experience feels so intense because as like what you're saying, JJ, is a need. Like I need to get married in order to have even all these other dreams that I have in my heart happen. And so every time I'm texting somebody or maybe I'm on a date, it feels like I need this to happen. And so you exude desperation unintentionally because you're like, I need this to happen. Like I need this to work. If it doesn't work, then I'm screwed. It feels like it's like an end all or be all type of thing. Yeah. And I think if we're talking about it in like the other way, the other attachment avoidant, maybe it can come from the same feeling of like, I need this to happen, but I am way more reserved. Like I don't actually, I'm way more skeptical. My guard's way higher because this decision is the biggest decision I'm ever going to make. And if I don't do the right thing, this could ruin my life type of thing. And so they kind of like hyper fixate on every interaction and like, how's my heart feeling right now? Do I feel like I really like this person? Does this person look really attractive today? Like, it's like every single interaction, they're looking at it on this microscope. And if it doesn't hit perfection, then it's maybe not good enough. So I'm probably going to back off and maybe find someone who could be better for me. And so I think we can see it in these two ways of they're both coming from the same need of like, I need to be married, we'll say, and I need to make a good decision, but we come at it in very different ways. One's more like, I'm grabbing it, I'm not letting it go. And one's like, I'll let you know if I grab it. We'll see. Like, I'm hesitant.
Right. So what you're spelling out, which we did have a really cool episode earlier this season, fully on attachment theory. So you're spelling out how an anxious leaning attachment person would act with anxiety and how an avoidant leaning person, it's funny because the anxious leaning, like it has the word anxious in it, but it doesn't mean that the avoidant leaning person doesn't have anxiety, right? And it's like they still have anxiety. Their anxiety is more trapped around making that decision and commitment or not commitment. And like, I don't know.
We see that a lot. We see that, especially maybe with guys, if you had to be maybe more stereotypical, guys they would never call it this, a ton of anxiety about asking her out on a date, about committing to just simply dating her, not even marrying her, about getting into a relationship. It's like at every milestone, no matter how big or small, so much anxiety just pops out of nowhere for these guys and they just overthink the decision away. And then they say, well, I don't have peace. So I'm out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we hear that all the time too. And that was my thing too. When we were dating, it was, I wasn't afraid to like talk to her or like just go on dates with her. But I was telling her earlier today, I was like, I'm thankful that you kind of reached out to ask if we wanted to hang out, because on my end at that time, I was like, I don't feel comfortable asking her out. I feel like I'm not at a good place to do that. And I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. So I think there was definitely that type of anxiety that was playing into my head in the sense of, I just didn't want to make a wrong decision. I didn't want to do something wrong, even though nothing was wrong. It's just that I was in my head about it. So, and I think there's a lot of people like that. But then as we were dating, that obviously took a different form and it got more
by
intense.
wrong decision, do you mean like choose the wrong person, ask the wrong person out, or like wrong decision as in like you offend her and like you're rejected? Like what do you mean by wrong decision for you?
I just feel like, it was the same fears. Again, it's like, well, I don't want to ask her out because I just don't feel like I'm at a good place. I just feel like I need to be doing better emotionally or whatever it was, because I feel like maybe I didn't want to lead her on, for example. I was scared that maybe I wasn't able to follow through with me asking her out, and I wanted to take things slow, which, it can be healthy to a certain degree, but if you want to take things so slow that you never move forward, that's not healthy.
What I love that you said too is that, and we get this question all the time, that Joy, you dropped the hanky in essence or on Matthieu, and you were like, hey, and so I do think it's a good point for ladies for you to hear that. A lot of guys, as you just heard, can be in their heads of like, I don't know if I'm in the best place. And the reality is for most people, they're never going to be in a perfect place.
Right.
There are better times to date than others. And we did an episode earlier with Riley and Jack on, are you ready to date or not? But, at the same time, some guys are just like, if you lean avoidant, you might hold on to that so long that you just like avoid dating entirely because you're trying to wait for some sort of perfect moment in your life.
Exactly.
And I do think men especially really hold themselves to this like standard of I have to be XYZ. And therefore, if they also lean avoidant, they're just like, hey, I'm not even going to touch it. So I think it's great that Joy, you reached out, you dropped the hanky, and he was like, okay, I could pick that up, I guess. Like, yeah.
But retroactively, Matthieu, would you say that you were scared of making the wrong decision, and then ultimately were you just kind of scared to commit and date somebody? Like, is that what you would boil it down to?
I mean, I think there was definitely a part that was that fear. Fear of commitment was definitely a big issue for me, because the way I was taught when I was younger and raised, in the sense of like, I can't make good decisions. That was basically the big thing in my life that was taught. And so not even that like it was the case, it's just that I was taught that. And so for me, I was like, well, I guess I can't make a decision. So every time I need to make a decision, I need to pray hard and make sure that like everything I do is completely aligned with God's will. And so there was definitely a fear of commitment, because I've always felt ashamed. So for some reason, I always felt ashamed of having feelings for someone and being in a relationship because of this thing of, are you sure you're in the right relationship? Are you sure this is God's will? And so it's this thing of constantly feeling like I'm in the wrong place, no matter who I'm with. So that was probably that fear too, of like, I don't want to.
Yeah, it's like the stakes are so high.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The stakes are so high that unless it's perfect,
yeah,
then it's going to be the wrong decision.
So I would love to hear from you guys when it comes to anxiety, the anxious person, the avoidant person, what are some of those biggest mistakes that you see with your coaching and working with people that are made in those first few dates? You know, I can think of some, but I want to hear from you guys. What are those biggest mistakes?
I mean, so the thing is, I've been thinking about, and we talked about that today too. Before we started hanging out and started talking, I tried to date that girl. And I think looking back, she had some kind of anxiety, like, what do you say, avoidant. And so looking back, she didn't appear like that. She appeared more like this person who's like, no, I just know what I want. No, I don't think that you know what you want. I think that you actually don't know what you want and you're actually scared to commit. And the thing is, she had a terrible way of handling dates. And to the point where like she needed the person that she was with to be perfect. And if it wasn't, and so for me, being anxious on my end too, I was like, I need to feel like I impress her and like the date is perfect. And so I was putting so much pressure on myself to do these crazy like gestures and trying to have the date be perfect. But her body language and her language, like the words she was using, the things she was communicating, everything was like self-sabotaging because she was rejecting all my
efforts,
my nice gestures. Yeah. She was rejecting like basic things too, in the sense of, for example, we were in ministry school. So she was doing like a fast, like a 21-day fast, whatever. And I remember at some point she told me, I only have 7 days left on my fast. And I was like, oh, that's great. I know you can do it. I believe in you. And then immediately she said, I don't need you to. And I was like, I'm just trying to be nice. Like I'm not trying to say that you can't do it. And so I think she probably had this fear of not being able to commit. And so therefore she would like reject all my nice things, my nice gestures, because she knew, and we had conversations where like, she knew I was a good guy. She knew I was a good person to be with. Sure. But for some reason, she just was afraid to really be with me. And then when I started dating her, she came back, was like, oh, actually, I think that I like you. I'm like, well, it's too late.
You don't have to apologize. It's too late.
I actually see what you're saying a lot with the females. Yeah. And what I would say that to me it looks like is the heart, almost like a hardened heart of like anything the guy does isn't ever going to be good enough. It's like, it's kind of like the I don't need no man, but I kind of want one, but I don't need one. Attitude. And so I think that, and it's what we would also say, it's very like masculine energy of like, I'm fine. I don't need you. I don't like, it's very closed energy. And also, yes, it's like that avoidant, but at the end of the day, you're probably right. Yeah. It's actually wild because probably those individuals would not say, oh, that's from any sort of anxious place.
Well, I have a question since we're talking about fasting and making decisions about dating. I've actually heard this more recently, especially, it's like the new year. So a lot more people are fasting. You guys are in the Bethel crowd, which I love because you're smack dab in the middle of this. What would you say in a scenario where it's like you have a great couple, meaning both of them are like pretty healthy. Both of them love God, super mature for their age. And really, like if you two had arranged their marriage, you would say yes. And one of them, they go on a fast to see about their future. And one of them feels like God's saying yes. And one of them feels like God's saying no and breaks up because the Holy Spirit and they don't have peace. Say you're coaching us.
I feel like we both have actually stories about that, which is so funny.
Say you're coaching Kate and I, and we're like, what do we do?
If I was, honestly, I would be like, oh my gosh. Sorry.
And do you see this? Like,
so many people, like, this is just so many people's like experience. And I think people really believe that God is saying it. And so I'm not faulting them, but then it's like, let's zoom out for a second and see, like, why would God tell me why God would say that? Like, and I think a lot of people are like, they think that there's this like, if God is saying no, there's something that God is like saving them for. Like I believe there's some anxiety around that, and they don't even know that's the case. I think that's what's sad about it, or their perception of God is actually misconstrued. And I think this is where a lot of Christians, honestly, really in our space for sure. When we were in ministry school, the amount of people who either God told them we were supposed to get married or who didn't, and they would back out because the Holy Spirit and whatever. It's like, too many to count, to be honest. And then you leave that culture and then you start doing it. And it's like, that is not like, it's kind of this like over spiritual way to be like, oh, well, God told me so. And it makes you feel really good and it makes you sound really spiritual, but it's not actually that good.
Especially if it was a good relationship.
Exactly.
And you're like, I'm having to walk away from a healthy, good, godly relationship.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel peace.
Because the Holy Spirit, I'm actually really surrendering.
Yeah. Again, and we use that as and I'm just going to be straight up, like we use it as an excuse and we think it is God. And so it sounds really nice. And it's like, wow, thank you for breaking up with me because God said it. But then then you think about it and it's like, everything was good. We've been dating for a while, or all lines lead to, this is our choice. But then God says no. So then therefore we like can't do it anymore. When there's no red flags, there's nothing at all that makes it evident that this would not be a good godly relationship. You know what I mean? And then it's kind of like, I feel like that just puts a bad taste in people's mouth about God, even the people they both believe, because they're like, well, why would God take away something so good? And I think people always refer back to the story of like Abraham and Isaac, and like they've been dying, like they've been praying for this child and they finally have a son. And then God's like, go and sacrifice to him and whatever, except kill him. And we talked about this in our podcast recently, and I was reading, kind of doing more of a study, I guess. I don't know. Not really reading more of Genesis and Exodus and whatever. And there were so many times before this experience where God continuously remind Abraham of who he was. Like, I am like, if anybody like tries to harm you, like I'm your protector, like I'm your God, like I will give this son. He promised him so many things. And then Abraham would, like a chapter later, do something different because he was afraid. And God was like, okay,
right. He would partially obey.
Yep. Like continuously like reminding him of who he was. And so there's history with God about that. Like after this point, when God told Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, there has been like a 30-year history of like him knowing like, okay, I know who God is. God promised me this son. So if God says this isn't like God taking away something good. This is just like, I know if God tells me to do this, he's just not going to have me do that. Like, I know God enough. You know what I mean? But a lot of people use that as like, okay, well, God told Abraham a promise that he desired to sacrifice. So God could do the same thing for me in my relationship, because he can do whatever he wants, and God could do whatever he wants. But people think that God is a lot more cruel than he actually is.
Yeah. I think even for me, like something I was going to say is, if you're talking about that example, you say someone gets a yes, someone gets a no. I would look at what's pushing the person to fast first. Are you going to fast because you're scared to make a wrong decision? Or are you going to fast because you love God and you really want to please him? If you enter a fast because you're scared to make a wrong decision, I can already tell you the answer you're going to hear is a no, because you're listening to your fear from the start.
Yeah.
If you go in there and you know you're confident that God is on your side, and you know that you are doing a fast because you love him and you want to please him, and there's no fear behind you doing this fast, then I think I would probably I don't want to say I would trust them more, but I think there would be more of an argument to say that, okay, God told you that for real. Because everything you do, like if it's motivated by fear or by love, you're going to get something completely different.
That's good.
It's going to be you're going to think you're going to hear God say this or that. But as soon as like what you do is motivated by fear, you're not hearing God anymore. So you have to be careful with that. Plus also, I never seen in the Bible someone fasting to figure out if the person they're going to marry is the right person or not. But that's me. So
Amen.
We're on the same Bible.
Yeah. Well, that's so good, guys. Hey, I want to also go back to my question because I want to hear what an anxious person does in the beginning stages of dating that kind of sabotages the dating process. You gave that great example of that woman. So good. And I feel like there's guys like that too. What about on the more anxious side of like less avoidant leaning, more anxious?
Well, let's give him a role play. Guy or girl, hey, why haven't you been texting me back? Like, why have you, like, you're a terrible texter and it makes me feel super anxious and terrible. And like, you're not into me when you don't text me back. And like, I just need you to change that.
Well, I don't like you, so there's your answer. Just kidding.
I'm like, okay, and we're done. I think that's a great example because I think that's what people do, where I'm already in a sense all in from the start, and so then maybe the other person isn't, because it's normal not to be all in at the start. Like it's actually very normal for it to be a process. Yeah. But if I'm all in and you're taking time, I'm gonna freak out and be like, okay, well, I'm probably gonna double text you, and I'm probably gonna like, hey, like I'm going to make it feel like unintentionally, but I want to make sure you didn't forget about me, because there's a belief that I have that you're going to forget about me and I'm replaceable and that you're probably going to find someone else. So I need to make sure that I'm in your peripheral vision at all times in a sense, which is like I probably did. I'm sure I did do that. Yeah. That's
me and my clients all the time.
I'm speaking to you. Yeah. But I do think that I know that I did that, or maybe they wouldn't text back as quickly. And I've already created a whole situation in my head of like, oh my gosh, like they don't really like me and all these things. I'm speaking like down to myself. Then they text me and I feel good again. Like, okay, well, never mind. Forget. Like all of my emotions is based off of this person texting me or this person like giving me attention. And then it's like when they don't, I'm feeling really down and I'm sad. And then when they do, I'm all happy again. Like your emotions cannot be dependent on this person talking to you, because then we're really codependent. And then that's not a great foundation for starting a healthy relationship. And I think,
there's a lot of that codependency happening in early dating. I mean, I was so guilty of this. Like you tap your phone. Did they text me? Did they tap my phone? And then you go into the text just to ensure, like you go into the texter just to make sure they didn't message you, you know. Worst case scenario is when they had read receipts on and you're like, they read my message and they didn't reply, right? Oh my gosh. And so that was like a nightmare for somebody like me who really used to struggle with anxious dating and being anxiously attached. You know, what helped me, and I want to get into how do we combat those things for somebody who leans more anxious and leans more avoidant in the anxiety. I'll just say for my story, what did help me, and then I want to hear from you guys, is taking it one day at a time. And after a date, for me, what I used to do is I would get so far in. If a first date went well, like I would already be, and it like I loved the connection. I would already be fast forwarding so far in my mind, you know, and I would be filling in the blanks of qualities that I didn't even know about them, but I would fill in the blanks because it was such a great date. And so after a date, I really had to ground myself. I would journal after every date, and literally the question I asked was, what do I still not know? What do I still not know? Because it helped me, because I would fill in the blanks and go so forward and with my attachment that I had to ground myself and be like, okay, what do I still not know about this person? You know, which for me, who was very anxiously attached, really helped. I'm like, okay, actually, yeah, this was good, but I still don't really know the depth of, you know, what really happened in their past relationship. And I still don't really know how they treat other people. I don't know what kind of friendships they have, you know. And as I actually brought myself back to reality, I was like, okay, you know, like I'm buzzing up here, like, connection, so amazing. And it would bring me back down to like this reality state of, okay, it's okay to feel excited, a little bit excited. That's okay. But don't get so excited that you are so attached and so looking for validation from them and so going already committed to them way further than this actually merits. Remind yourself of these are the things you don't know yet, and you need to still figure those things out before you commit in your brain that you want to be with this person. So that's one thing I did. I would love to hear what you guys suggest.
I think that's good. Yeah.
It's really good.
I think, I remember the first episode that we did, you had a rule. What is it? Like 90 days?
Yes. 90 days. Yep.
Yeah. Where I think, if you know that maybe you're prone to like being anxious, especially the early stage of dating, it'll be good for you to have maybe some kind of boundaries that you set for yourself, in the sense of, even if we're talking about that example of you're texting or whatever, and then for some reason the person doesn't text you back in like 1 or 2 days, like a couple days, maybe being like, okay, I'm not going to reach out like right away and like try to give into this anxious cycle of like, oh my gosh, like they don't like me or whatever. Be like, no, I'm going to give myself a couple days before I reach out again, if they don't reach out to me. So I don't, it's a small boundary, and I think that it probably will be different depending on what you struggle with, but that's something I think, could be helpful. And I think for me, if we're talking about like the first like 3 dates, I feel like you don't really need to, we need to be able to not jump too far in the future. You need to take, like you said, take it one day at a time. Like make sure that when you go on a date, you're having a good time. Like you talk with the person and you have fun. And if you already like are the first few dates and you really don't have fun at all, then maybe there's a personality thing. Like maybe you just don't get along well. Maybe like that's fine. And you can figure that out easily, but at least like give it a chance, give it a chance, give it enough time. And don't try jumping into like, oh my God, how many kids does he want? Or things like that, like these super deep questions, that I think at the beginning, it's more about building friendship. I feel personally, like at the beginning, like if you are getting to know someone, it's like you're getting to know a friend, but obviously it's normal. And I think it's healthy to have this little thing of, okay, obviously there's a romantic, goal to this, but I don't want to approach this and feel like it has to work out. Like, be like, no, be open. I think if you approach it in a way that you need it to work out, it's already becoming unhealthy. I think you can approach it being like, yeah, I would like this to work out, but I have open hands. I'm not holding on to it so tightly then if it doesn't work out, I'm crushed and like I feel terrible.
Yeah. I would.
So good.
Something that I would make sure that I tried to do is I would, at least for the first couple of dates, because I knew that I would maybe jump up in my mind, I would only talk with people and I would tell them ahead of time, like, we're not hyping this up. Like we can have fun. We're not hyping this up to be like, oh my gosh, like this could be the one. Like, cause my friends and I could easily go there if we wanted to be there. You know what I mean? And so I would make it very clear and be like, I would talk to my mom. So my mom she was really good at not doing that, of just being like, okay, thank you for letting me know. That's interesting. I'm glad you had a fun time. And she would just help me feel leveled. And I think going if I'm going on a date with somebody, I'm going in with like, let's say a goal in mind. Like my goal in this date, we're just getting to know each other. So we're really only on the friend type of level. My goal is to find out like 2 new facts about this person. Like my goal is to like, help me to get to know more about them. Like, cause I think if we kind of let the conversation run wild, easily we can go so deep. We get so vulnerable on the first date. And we're like, why did we talk about my past trauma in the first date? That was really intense. But why did I feel the need to say that right now? And sometimes we unconsciously share really intense information to try to get the connection to go quicker when that's not necessary. Yeah. And it's not helpful. And if we're on the friend level, if I'm just meeting you, we're not really at the level where I should share with you something so intense. And so until we're like more serious and more whatever, like committed, then we can share more things. So if we can sometimes like put like a a model will say of like, if we're only on the friend level and meaning we're not dating yet at all, then this is what this should look like. And if we're now in a relationship, this is maybe what this looks like. But still, even if we're dating month 1, month 2, maybe we don't still have to be like talking about kids yet. Like that's still like, that's level year, I don't know, 6,
You're
7
talking
months
about
stuff, right?
pacing, like healthy pacing. Yes.
Yeah.
I think on the flip side of that, when it comes to maybe more avoidant, these people might be more prone to reject quicker. And so I'm looking for things to get out of
Like
the door.
critical.
Yeah.
I would say hypercritical.
For
Or
sure.
it's well, and it's always the worst when they don't even give the other person a chance.
Yes.
You know, so it's funny that you give the advice of what do I still not know about this person? Because a lot of times in my mind, maybe in Matthew's mind, as an avoidant, you could actually still use that same question, which is, we've been dating for a month. I'm not sure if they're so safe. I'm not sure if I can be vulnerable with them. Well, you don't know. You actually still don't know that information because you've never been vulnerable. You've never relied on them for a need. You've never expressed a need. And so you're going to go ahead and shut this bad boy down because you don't have peace and you don't feel good. And you don't because you haven't been vulnerable. You haven't even shared a need, a weakness. And so before you've even given them a chance, you haven't even, given them an opportunity to prove.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
And for you guys, all. So for somebody who's avoidant, who might probably be more critical, they're going to look at things, they're trying to find something to exit the door, right? Yep. So for example, maybe it's a guy who is dating a girl and he realizes on the date or in the dating process, she has more emotions than he thought. Like she maybe is feeling more needy to him. She's feeling more emotional. And he maybe just gets that through 1 or 2 examples. And he's like, okay, bye. This isn't going to work for me. Right. Mm-hmm. And he gets anxious about it. And so he's like, no, this is needy. She's going to need too much for me. That's scary. I'm going to leave. I feel like that's a big thing that happens. Guys are looking, we've said this so many times. I think a lot of guys are looking for this perfectly low maintenance girl that looks like a Victoria's Secret model, but acts like a guy in terms of her emotions. And she has very little emotional needs. And so it's like kind of like this really weird phenomenon that you find a lot of guys looking for. And so what would you say to that guy who is just looking hypercritical, looking for that exit door, looking for the little things to make him run away?
If you're wired like that, I think that you probably need to do some inner work. Like you probably need some inner healing, because I think probably dating is probably not the only area of his life where he's doing that. He's probably doing that with a lot of things. And, it's like, especially I feel like in this generation, like a lot of people are dissatisfied with their jobs. And I think that those people don't realize also what they have, and that what they have is actually good, So why are you doing that? I think you need to dig deeper and understand why are you hypercritical? Why are you uncomfortable with a woman who is showing emotions? It could be reversed too, because I'm a very emotional guy, and she had like sometimes trouble with that. And so I'm thankful she didn't walk away. But I guess, is it that you're not comfortable with emotions? Like, is that really the problem? Is it really that she's too emotional, or is it that you're not comfortable with emotions? Maybe you grew up in a home where emotions were not, like, people were not vulnerable. And so you're not comfortable with vulnerability. Cause obviously there's people who are really needy and very insecure, and that's a real thing too. And obviously I'm not forcing anybody to be with someone who's insecure to the point where it becomes toxic. But if it's just someone also being vulnerable and showing vulnerability, then I would tell that person who's not comfortable with that and be like, why are you not comfortable with that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think it's not, instead of being so quick to judge, you have to like remain curious, which I think is very hard for people. But if we're able to remain curious about certain things instead of just like automatically like checking it off, like, nope, that's not going to work for me. You've already concluded in your mind what this was besides actually before even getting more clarity about like why do I not like it? Or what about that feels like this is too much for me? Or like asking the person like, maybe they're not that needy. Maybe there's like a normal person who just has emotions. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah. But whenever we judge, we've already closed the door of knowing more, and we have to like remain curious always. And there's certain things that are automatically like, you can judge it because it's not okay. You know what I mean? Like you've heard something they said, or they're doing something like, that probably isn't like something I need to be curious about. That's probably a huge red flag, and that's fine. But like knowing the difference, I think is really important. Is this actually like a red flag, or is this like my preference I don't like, or is this something that's maybe triggering me that's wanting to close the door so fast without even getting to know more? Which again, I think as Matthieu saying, you kind of have to know more about yourself to know which category that would be for you, if that makes sense.
So good.
Yeah, I would definitely say the guy doesn't sound ready, or whoever that person is, looking at the other and saying, oh, you have emotions, not going to work. Sure. So I think, I will be honest though. I think some people kind of convince themselves to just keep doing it for whatever reason. And they kind of like white knuckle themselves into that relationship, into that marriage. And then they get on the other side and they just realize how difficult relationship is, and more importantly, how I hope they would, understand and realize over time how emotionally dead and numb they are to themselves. That's a hard place to be. I have a lot of compassion because that was me. First of all, there's so much pride there, right? To think that your way is the best way and the right way, and that someone else's stance on emotions and feelings is the wrong way. And then two, the humility to be open that, maybe your way is good, but maybe it's not the most healthy. And if something really is true, I think that's what I really wrestle with. If something really is true, then it should be able to be challenged constantly, because if it's true, then it stands any test. So where we have this like hyper fixated grasp on truth and we're not allowing it to be challenged, I actually think it's maybe the opposite, which is the humility that comes with the awesome truth of, well, if it really is the most healthy and best way, then it should be open to be challenged. And if you're wrong, well, then you're in a more healthy place. I definitely see that emotionally, especially with guys, like they're just totally convinced, and probably, deep down they would admit emotionally, I'm not in a good place. I have a pretty bad relationship with my feelings and emotions. Therefore, anyone with emotions and feelings, for me is going to be high maintenance. And a lot of that is from the aspect of you just grew up and your feelings and emotions were a burden to your parents or siblings. You didn't have any safe people. You never really experienced vulnerability in safe space. So how could you ever desire it, give it to somebody else, if you've never really experienced it yourself?
Right. For sure.
I agree. For me, God really took that out of me, because I do feel like growing up, I was kind of pretty numb. But then God actually called me out. It was like, hey, you need to explore that vulnerable side of you, and you need to share about some of your struggles and some of the things that are not okay in your life. And that was hard at first, but then I started doing it more and more. And that actually helped me with also understanding other people's emotions and handling other people's emotions. And especially like once you get married, like that's really important, because we're all emotional beings. And having an understanding of how emotions work is like super important.
Yeah.
Well, it's the best gift of all, because you actually have a relationship.
Yeah.
You actually have a relationship with God, your spouse, your girlfriend, your friends, when you actually embrace your emotions, because there's a lot of gifts that come with them, and sharing them and having those needs met, like your feelings and your emotions met. But we really appreciate you guys. This was a lot of fun. I think we were talking about this the other day, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Last question. Would you say like 90%, that's the number that we say, 90% of the maybe young adult single Christian experience is actually just navigating friendationships, church crushes, relational anxiety? Do they like me? Would you actually say it's maybe about like 90% of their...
At least from the people you work with.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
This is their top thing.
Because we're seeing it too.
100%. Like I
agree.
would, honestly, 95 probably for people we deal with, but like truly, it's a lot.
It's interesting as we spoke at our young adults ministry. I don't remember when that was, but that was a few months ago. And we're always, when we speak publicly or just speak in front of people in general, even when we spoke at your class that we did in December. We always have this little apprehension of like, what if like no one
is experiencing this
and we're like talking to the wrong crowd and it doesn't really speak to anyone. And then after the fact, you always have all these people coming up to us and being like, oh my goodness, like this was so good. Like I didn't realize I experienced this and thank you so much. And we're always like, oh, wow, for us, that's cool. But at the same time, it's like, dang.
What is going on that's like so common? And maybe it's always been common, but I feel like it's probably increased so much more with so many factors. But it's definitely a high number.
Yeah.
We were all like single young adults, and at worship night, as much as we want to be focused on worshiping, we were checking out the person that we had a crush on.
Yeah, so many times.
That's fair.
Like half the time during worship,
It's not a gym crush, it's a church crush.
Yeah. So you got to make sure you're worshiping really nice so they see you, Okay.
Exactly. Making sure you show them that you have a naked left ring finger. Can you guys just tell them what your resources are? Because I know you have some things coming up. I want them to be able to connect with you guys too.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. So we have our membership, which is called Relationship Anxiety Academy. This is where if you are in the beginning, like I know have some sort of anxiety, it's a good low ticket item where you can just join. The biggest part of what we do there is like community aspect of it. People who are all experiencing relationship anxiety, they're able to kind of come together. We're in it. We have a chat group. We have master classes that we release every month that hits a key point in relationship anxiety, whether that's attraction, feeling, knowing it's the one. And then also our group coaching that's coming up.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a group coaching coming up next month. And that's more intense. It's 3 months, right? No, is it?
9 weeks.
9 weeks. Never mind. Not 3 months, 9 weeks. And it's more intensive in the sense of like we walk people through a whole process of rewiring your brain, basically like learning how to, because anxiety is really a wiring problem. And so we teach people how to like go from an anxious state to kind of fighting your own fears, your own demons, I guess, and understanding too if like maybe what you're struggling with in your relationship might not be a relationship problem, it's actually an anxiety problem, and you need to fix it.
Well, we love you guys. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah,
and we really hope this blesses some people.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
The Heart of Dating podcast is created by Kate and JJ Tomlin. Shout out to our epic audio and video editor, Scott Caro. We have an amazing Heart of Dating team who helps bring the show to you each week. I want to shout out Elena Gibson, our brand and community manager. Now, if you guys have never ranked us or reviewed us on iTunes or Spotify, would you consider doing that? It would mean so much because our podcast can get more discovered and more people can learn how to better date as Christians. Don't we all want that? We launch our podcast each and every week on Wednesdays, so we will see you next week.